Good evening, everyone. Hope you're well. Tonight's BSL Blethers discussion will be all about Deaflympics, which is a really important topic to discuss tonight. And we do have a reason behind it because this week we're going to be discussing a lot about Deaflympics. We'll talk about how sports is such an integral part of the deaf community and has been for years. It's part of our history for all of us to be involved in sports. So tonight, I'd like to introduce our three guests who will be joining me in this discussion tonight. We're going to be talking about deaf sports and then we'll link it to Deaflympics. So our first guest this evening is Chris. Hello,
Hi.
Chris.
Hello. Hi.
Could you introduce yourself, Chris? Tell us a wee bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Chris. I'm the Chief Executive CEO of UK Deaf Sports, and I'm also responsible for organising the Deaflympics for Team GB.
So when did
and
you
I'm
get
very
involved?
excited to be here. Started about September last year. Well, so about 5 months, 6 months. So yeah, I'm hot off the press, as it were, hard at work.
Well done on your appointment, and thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Later on, I'll ask you some more questions, but we've got other guests who are ready to join us. So, Andrea. Hi, Avril. So again, Andrea, can you tell us a wee bit about yourself? I'm Andrea. I myself was involved in sports for a long time, and I'm now currently president of UK Deaf Sports. And you work with Chris? I do. We're all part of this family. Like Chris, I'll ask you a wee bit more later on, Andrea, so just bear with me. And finally, our final guest this evening is Stuart. Hi,
Hello.
Stuart.
Hiya.
So, Stuart, a bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Stuart. This is my sign language name, Stuart. And I've been involved in sports forever and ever. But now I'm the Vice President of UK Deaf Sports.
Wow, so we've got three people here tonight that work together very closely. Could I ask you each to give us a wee bit about your own sporting background and how you've ended up with this position, this honour tonight, or today, rather? So if I could start with each one of you and start with Andrea. So I was involved in GP swimming from 1980 right through to 1985 for that period of 5 years, and then I changed to badminton, and that was from 1988 to 2013 roundabouts. And recently I joined I became the honorary president of UK Deaf Sports. So you've three different roles, Andrea. Wow. Yeah, I managed my badminton as well during that period, and now, as I say, I'm the honorary president. It's wonderful to see people who've been sports persons themselves who've kept that commitment there. What about yourself, Chris?
Oh, I've been around for a while. My first sport was swimming, like Andrea. I was a swimmer for GB. And then I switched over to water polo.
Okay.
And I got picked for Los Angeles for the American Games. And I was still playing water polo at that time. But at the same time, I also was doing kind of football at home, a lot of football stuff. So I think it was about 1993, I stopped and then switched to rugby for a while. And then I became involved as a volunteer in deaf sports, and I began to get into the administration, the support for that. And then I became the CEO and the leader for Melbourne, which was 2005. And yeah, so now that I'm CEO, I'm back in deaf sports, I guess.
It's so interesting to see your personal journey being a sportsman and then that passion being there and now keeping it going by using your skills to help others. What about yourself, Stuart?
Oh, when I was younger, I was an athlete, long distance runner. So I did that for a while. And I first ran for Great Britain in the European Championships a long time ago. But really, my background is in coaching and management. I've been a PE teacher. I'm qualified as a PE teacher, and I've worked in that for a long time. So that's my background, kind of supporting and coaching mostly.
So, do you have any kind of role within UK deaf sports at the moment?
Currently, I'm preparing a hockey team, to go for Deaflympics, and cricket. So golf, cricket, those kinds of things. And they're not really big mainstream sports.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think I can say on behalf of everybody, thank you for all your contributions, personally sport, but also being here as well. So I'd love to show our audience at home some nostalgic photos. And we'll start with Andrea. So let's have a look. Wow, Andrea, when you look back, how did it feel? Oh, Avril, I just want to turn back the time and go back and do it all again. I loved being in competitions. You stay young forever in that state. Can you tell us a bit about the photographs? Well, about 1981, that Deaf Olympics, it was in Cologne. Can you spell that? That's Koln in Germany. And yeah, it was in 1981. And I was the youngest in the team at that time. And looking back, I mean, it was a really good experience. And we didn't get a medal, unfortunately. But in 1985, we went to LA in America and succeeded in getting a bronze medal. And that was for them doing the relay in swimming. And I was so proud to come home. Then I changed to badminton. And I got involved in the deaf club, but also in the hearing club as well. So I was having both there, and eventually I was picked to go to New Zealand, and that was in 1989. And I won 3 medals. I got the ladies double mixed, the ladies single, and then I got in 1993 in Sofia in Bulgaria. I was competing there. I got a silver medal, and that's for the ladies doubles. And then the following time we were there, which was 2001, that was in Rome in Italy. I got a bronze, and that was for the ladies double. So I have quite an array. And the last competition I did for badminton was in Taipei in 2009. And unfortunately, I didn't get a medal that time, but what a wonderful experience. It's just all of the competitions have just been so memorable. Oh, Andrea, well done. You're such a role model to every young person out there, to all of us, in fact. Well done. Thanks, Avril. And thank you so much for sharing your photographs. So can I now turn to Chris, and let's have a look at Chris's photos. Wow. Chris, could you tell us a wee bit about your journey in those photographs?
Sure. So I first was in the Deaflympics in 1985, and that was in Los Angeles in America, and that was for water polo. We didn't get a medal, unfortunately. Not like Andrea. Well done, Andrea. But it was a great learning experience. You know, at that time, I was only just 18, so I was still quite young, you know.
Yeah.
So it was really wow in terms of kind of, you know, just meeting international deaf community members, and just the most amazing experience, you know. And then I got involved still with water polo. I continued with that. But I also love football. So I've played football throughout my sporting years. Um, and somebody said to me, you know, you'd be good at rugby. And I thought, oh, maybe. I thought it was a hearing sport, rugby. There was no deaf involvement at that time. But then about 20 years after LA, I became the team leader for Melbourne 2005, and I was responsible for organising the team and everything. So I got back into deaf sports, supporting the organisation for Melbourne. And it was a pretty successful games, actually. And I think it went well. And funnily enough, at the end of my sporting career was really successful, because I was involved with the first ever Deaf Rugby World Cup. And that was in New
Ah.
Zealand in 2002. So we played the Welsh Deaf, and we got a medal there in the final. It's great.
Oh, well done. What a journey. It's lovely to see you kind of switch in sports. And that seems to be a theme
Right.
because Andrea had that as well. And then, you know, getting into sort of management, administration, fundraising, all of that stuff, but also saw you stand behind the person carrying the flag. So that was such an honour as well, I'm sure. But can we now ask Stuart, can you tell us a wee bit about yourself? Or rather, let's see Stuart's photos first. Stuart, tell us about yourself.
Well, so those photos, well, you saw there were three of us in that first one, and that was in Santun, and that was in 2017. That was in Turkey,
Okay.
2017. And I was the team manager for the golf team. And we just had two golfers, just took two golfers,
Just
Paul and Steve.
wow.
And Paul won, he got silver, and Steve got bronze.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Well done. You must be
yeah,
proud.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the other one that you saw there was me in my role as vice chair of English golf. So I'm looking after the English team there. You
Okay.
know, so you know, you see me with one of our famous players there.
Who was the person that you were autographing a book for? Who was that?
Well, I'm trying to remember now. That was in London Olympics here in 2012. And there was a kind of question session about deaf sports, and I've been asked so many questions about it. I thought I'd just write a book and explain about the history of deaf sport. So this is it here. Same spirit,
Ah,
different team.
lovely. And can you buy this book?
Yeah, it's for sale. And really, it's trying to give people more of an understanding and explanation of what the challenges are for deaf sports people. And then I also got into cycling, really fundraising for that sport, because you know, a lot of my time I spend in the background supporting, fundraising, that sort of thing.
Wow, what a lovely cohesive team and lots of different activities going on. I really can't thank you enough and just to say well done. So let's talk about the Deaf Olympics. They're happening in Japan. That's right, in the summer.
That's
So
right.
before we get into the nitty gritty about that, can we just go back ever so slightly and think about sort of the sports, if you like, in general, in the sense of what have been the good experiences or bad experiences that maybe you want to share with our audience about your journey? Andrea? Oh, from my experience, and we're going back now 40 years, when I first started swimming when I was so young, I can remember the swimming pool itself then compared to now is completely different. You know, the way the water would go against the wall, it would create waves. Is now that doesn't happen. So when you're in a race, you don't have that kind of splash and the force of the waves coming back. So when because it can affect you if you're in a single lane, that pressure and that movement, and you have to fight against that. And now modern day technology is just so amazing compared to what it was like. It's really improved. It's actually the same with badminton. It was very rarely that we would get a flat surface, and now they've got this kind of like special sort of rubber mat that ensures flatness. Because what you want is you want to make sure that you've got a bounce. And in the olden days, we were having it was hard floor, so that was affecting your joints and ligaments and things like that. So again, it's like everything else. Through time and through experience, things change, and hopefully they keep improving. What about yourself, Chris or Stuart? Have you got any good or bad experiences? Chris?
Yeah, I'd say get ready to train at weekends. When I was training before Los Angeles, I was training in Manchester. And at that time, GB Def would practice against Manchester water polo team. And, there was an accident. Somebody elbowed me in the face, fell over, was knocked unconscious, lost a tooth.
Oh,
I mean, you learn quickly from those kinds of experiences, right? But sport can be rough.
that's certainly
So,
rough.
I think it's interesting looking back and thinking about, back in the day when we were young, sport was, much less technical than it is now. I think it is very different now because I'm freezing here. Sorry.
Okay,
We spend more
because
time training now, so yeah, it's better. I haven't had any bad experiences, I don't think, really. I mean, no major injuries, but beyond the usual, nothing bad. I think there are always challenges, though, always challenges in any game, that you're looking to find the right environment to train. And that's something that we're doing for golf now. We're, trying to establish a program that improves our performance and can really help the team ready for the Deaflympics, because the game is always to raise your standard, isn't it? And there's always somewhere higher to go, so you keep pushing higher and higher.
you're absolutely right. I mean, things have changed. Standards are getting higher, tech's getting involved. There really is that's very driven in competition now. And when we think about the Deaflympics coming, I think it's November, is that right? Yep, thank you. Chris, you're, as a chief executive, you're responsible for UK Deaf Sports. So, any updates? How you get on? What can you share with us?
Well, really, at the moment, working hard to plan and organize and sort out just the details, for example, booking hotels, making sure the kit's ready, we've got the slogans, and just to make sure that everything is ready before we go to Tokyo. At the same time, we're checking that all the teams for all the sports. We've got 5 teams going.
Right, 5, okay.
So we've got swimming, golf, tennis, football, men's and women's. So altogether, we've got 120 athletes going to Japan. We might have a cycling team as well. We're not quite sure about that yet. So that might be a last minute addition. that's happened before, so it's possible that that might happen again. So we're very busy at the moment with that kind of thing. And at the same time, we're trying to fundraise, which is always difficult.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you've got all these different sports competing. So are all of the athletes traveling together at one time?
No, because we realized that the cost of that would be prohibitive. So
Ah,
we've got some funding that means, you know, we can cover some of it, but the athletes are having to fundraise themselves. You know, the football, the athletics will go first, and the tennis, and then the golf and the swimming go next, and then the last will be the marathon, because it's the last of all the competitions. So and all the athletes go 3 days before the competition starts, just to get acclimatized, get used to the environment, the climate, the food, make sure that they're ready for their competition. So really, we want to make sure that we can, well, make sure that it's not just competition. You don't just go there, sleep, compete, leave. You know, you get a little bit of time to have a little sightsee, a little tour of the place that you're in, kind of thing. You know.
so obviously you're going to have to stagger the amount of people getting out at different times because of the costs. And so from what I'm reading from you, the athletes will be joining nearer the time for their competition. So
That's
can
right.
I say, what is the kind of overall cost for taking a delegation to Olympics?
Well, at the moment, for the Deaf Olympics team for GB, it's about 400 to 500,000. Yeah, 400 to
Wow.
500,000, and that really depends on the price of the hotel, the flights. You know, obviously, we're trying to broker deals and get discounts with that. Um, but for example, you know, that's why we're staggering the flights, because we get reductions, and we might get reductions in our hotel costs if we can kind of reuse the rooms, and we just take any savings we can get, you know. So we might say 50, 60,000, which is a huge cost. So we're trying our best to fundraise for the cycling, but if we can't do that, then the athletes will just have to top that up themselves, really. I mean, we're trying to do as much as we can.
So do they do fundraise themselves? Well, sorry, yeah, you were saying you fundraise yourself, but what about getting information out there to the deaf community? What have you been doing?
Well, everyone's been very generous. They've done fundraising themselves.
Okay,
Some
that's good.
sports have offered, you know, amounts of money. I mean, we're still looking for that one big sponsor. That's our long-term goal. So hopefully, we're you know, we're looking to raise more money from businesses, from companies. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Chris. Andrea, could ask both yourself and Stuart as president and vice president, what is your role? I know it's within UK Deaf Sports. Could you tell me a wee bit more about it? Okay, Avril, I suppose I go about and represent going to events, also different sporting events, and I'm a role model, you know, and people are interested in where I started and how I got here and my journey. I go and I look at the sports, I see what's visible out there. I offer my support, I offer encouragement, anything, assistance, anything I can do. But also, what I would like to see is the children, especially our young people, because they are our future. And hopefully, the children will look up to me as a role model and see maybe a bit of themselves in me, you know. And let's hope that that'll spur on their imagination to train hard and be an athlete, because it's not really, it's not all fun and glamour. It's really training hard and getting involved in the competitions. You know, it helped me being involved in a hearing club because I got more skills and I got to just get that wee bit more training and get that competition, get my standards up. What about yourself, Stuart?
Well, as vice president, really, it's a very similar role to Andrea's, but you know, I've been involved for so long now. as staff, even, just kind of supporting and coaching the athletes, that I've now supported 5 chief executives in my time.
Oh, Chris, are you the fifth?
Yeah, Chris is my 5th.
Could I pick up on something that Andrea had mentioned earlier on? And it was about, our sport events in the past. Could I ask you, have you noticed, has there been a decline in the number of deaf people attending sporting events? And if there has been, if you get any solutions? Oh, Avril, I can see the difference. In the past, we had so many deaf clubs, so we had those feeders coming from the deaf clubs. We don't have that now. That was our connection to the young people. The school fed to the youth club, and the deaf club fed into all the sports. So yeah, I've seen it. What's the solution? I don't know. Guys, do you have an idea?
I think grassroots is really got to be our schools, hasn't it? That's where the grassroots is. So we need to get through to the teachers and the head teachers to allow time within the school to encourage children to get involved in sports, and to bring in local deaf role models who've been sports people themselves, to set up after school clubs, after school trips. We need that. Whether we can still get that to happen, I don't know. It is a bit of a challenge.
Chris?
Yeah, I think Andrea's right. And as Stuart has said, really, young people not going to deaf clubs now is a bit of an issue, because how do we reach out to them? How do we outreach? Especially the young people who are in mainstream schools, and we know that that's quite a considerable number. So recently we launched our youth destination program.
Okay, yep.
And that's an outreach program aimed at young people and schools, and we're trying to reach out through any of those kinds of organizations. We're talking about positive mental health here, we're talking about fitness, but also introducing the background, the history, and the education of that, and how sport can be useful in learning maths, learning history. It can be a useful resource across the curriculum. So we've recently launched that just a couple of weeks ago, and that's ongoing. And we've already got over 1,000 packs that we've sent out. So it's been a pretty amazing response. But our challenge is going to be to keep in touch with those people and try and bring them into our community, because, as Andrea said, the number of young people feeding into sports is withering in the deaf community. So we want to try and get more deaf young people involved in sports going forward.
So it was only 2 weeks ago, Chris, that you sent out those packs?
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of work involved with the design and a lot of consultation, trying to get it right for quite a long period of time. Over 6 months we've been working on it, but we launched it 2 weeks ago. And we really particularly targeted to deaf schools first, and then we began to look at units, mainstream schools, sporting trusts, games organisers, events organisers, within the mainstream. And we're also aiming to look at the deaf community as well as the hearing community.
Stuart, you've something to add there?
Yeah, Thursday last week I was in a school in Birmingham, actually, and that was I went there as a deaf golfer, and as a paddleboarder. So I was talking to the kids about my experiences, about those sports, about the Deaflympics, and the point is to really inspire them. So I think you have to work locally with your local community. I think that's really important. Deaf kids have to know where the local opportunities are.
That's absolutely so right. And let's hope that people maybe watching at home will be inspired by what you've said tonight, and maybe reach out to the schools or individuals to let them know this opportunity is available. Yeah, I want to just double check. It is UK, all over the UK, not just
That's
England?
right. UK wide. Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. So that's wonderful that you're wanting to support young people. But I can't help but notice, Stuart, those thinly disguised posters you have in the background. Fair play for deaf athletes, and I'm backing the call to fund Deaflympics. Tell us, what are they about?
Yeah, these are really about the process that we're going through with deaf sports. We're trying to encourage, well, you know, the general kind of wider field, the organizations, everyone to support Deaflympics and deaf athletes, really.
So you're going to do a sort of publicity campaign to try and raise awareness and actually get people interested as well. One of the ways is going through the schools, but are you going to the deaf clubs as well? Or is that part of the kind of strategy, promotion? Sure.
Well, I'm hoping, there's a lot of local groups. And we sent out lots of packs. I mean, I don't know exactly who, we spent out quite a lot, but there seems to be a lot of local group interest. So seems to be a lot of things at the local level. And, a lot of local kind of deaf versus hearing sports. So hopefully we reach out to a lot of young people that way.
Chris.
It's early days because I've just started my job, but we're in consultation with the BDA, the chief executive there, Rebecca, and we're also talking to Sign Health. We're talking to other deaf organisations about how we work together. So, for example, with Sign Health, we want to set up, family fun days, which involve sport activities, and perhaps deaf coaches to kind of promote different sports. And different games because it's important for mental health and well-being. With the BDA, we're thinking about their future youth strategy and how we relate to that. So there's a lot of conversations, very positive conversations going along in the background. These things take time to develop, and we need to focus on the Deaflympics first, the upcoming Deaflympics, and then but we'll build out for that. And I think we're aiming for a broader audience. We're heading in that direction.
Stuart.
And I have to say, Chris is right, because it's a good thing to have some good examples in the community. The deaf world runs on word of mouth, as it were, and deaf organisations, deaf people providing funding to us will encourage more people to get involved in the sport. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship, and I think it's good for all of us. And I think that collaboration is really important.
I think you're absolutely right. The deaf community and deaf organisations together are a powerful force. We spoke earlier about the Deaflympics that's going to be happening this year, the end of the year. So let's have a wee look at some other photographs. Oh, I think we've got a wee technical glitch at the moment. We're looking for photographs of previous Deaflympics. Or rather, this Deaflympics coming up in Tokyo 2025. And it's between the 15th to the 26th of November 2025. So that's the logo for the Deaflympics this November. So what's your plan? What, do each of you have a role? Are you going? What's going to happen between now and then? Chris?
Well, at the moment, as I've already said, there are a number of different sports who are training really hard and preparing. And in the background, me and other volunteers, we are like Chris Beach and other leaders. We are organising. We're doing a lot of work. It's not just about booking things; it's also fundraising.
Absolutely.
We're working with other people to try and help us with that fundraising. We previously had a small amount of government funding from government from 2005 to 2009, but that has more recently stopped. So we're hoping to persuade the government to look, after 2012, we didn't get our funding back. So we're trying to kind of make reparations with them. We're trying to make representation to them. So far, those efforts have been ignored, but we're trying again to persuade the government to fund deaf athletes and fund deaf sports, because at the moment, our concern is that the athletes should be focusing on training, not fundraising. This is really stressful for the athletes in a period where they should be building up prowess in their sport. They should be training for their sport. But they
Absolutely.
shouldn't have to be fundraising for their own accommodation and that kind of thing. So it's really not easy for them. I know that they'll do it, but,
Andrea, what about yourself? Did you have that kind of, you know, dilemma of trying to fundraise and train? Absolutely, Avril. That's how it was then. But I do think I was really lucky because my local hometown were so supportive. At the same time, I did feel I was under enormous stress. I wanted like them to just go ahead and sort of do the job and fundraise, and then me as an athlete and with my other athletes, colleagues, we could focus on, making sure we were fit for the game. So it was very hard having to juggle those two very different responsibilities. Definitely when we got nearer the games and things were sorted, then you could just put totally your focus into competing. That's something, other people, other athletes, they'll focus on the games wherever the country is. But, for you guys, you've had to think long in advance about um, all the things you have to do just to get there. So that's really tough. So hats off to each one of you. So where do you see the future of Deaf Olympics? Have you got any concerns, given that we've been talking about how hard it is to fundraise? Chris?
I'd say it's hard to say really, because Deaflympics itself, as a formation, of a number of different countries, has 3,000 to 4,000 athletes attending
Hmm.
from 80 different countries. Yeah,
80?
80,
Wow.
80, yeah, different countries. So it's massive. But, um, we have now a lot of deaf people who are also oral. Times have changed. That not all deaf athletes are sign language users. So, and I think the establishment, the setting up of Deaflympics itself is very expensive.
The
So,
cost, yeah.
yeah, the cost is very high. So, in terms of kind of funding, I don't think any country has really cracked that, because deaf sports aren't funded by the official Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, the IOC. So I think it's something that we need to think about, because it's not fully funded, it's not fully costed.
I mean, you're right. You've got this concern of costs going up, also trying outreach with young people. So I can see why you'd be worried that there could be a decline in the future.
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll always be something, but I think there might be a decline in deaf sports, or a change of some kind of organization of the competition in deaf sports. I think it's a challenge for the next few years, most definitely. Some countries, of course, are fully funded. Their athletes are fully funded, so they're okay. I think it's a different challenge for whoever is hosting. Belgium was really huge compared to, Taipei in Taiwan, which was absolutely massive because they got a huge grant from their government. So it depends. It really affects the level of games that we'll see. I'm not sure what we'll see in Tokyo. It looks fantastic. It looks like there's great work going on. But at the same time, it's not easy for the Japanese. So, because they've got to fundraise for their team as well.
Can I ask though? I mean, we understand the sort of like the physical aspects of sport, and it helps with well-being and things like that. But what do you think about sports regarding isolation, loneliness, mental health, Andrea? Oh, I think it's not just about being physically fit as an athlete. You need to be mentally fit as well. And it's about keeping a hold of those positive thoughts. And one thing about sport is, if you enjoy it and you're passionate about it, that's easy to get in that frame of mind. I mean, the deaf community, our culture, from all the deaf communities are all different, and when you meet people, it's lovely. We are like brothers and sisters. We have that bond. We're friendly, even although we're competing with each other. It's just so good for your own mental health and well-being, just sharing in those cultural experiences too. Chris?
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember I was brought up oral, speaking, lip reading myself, and that we weren't allowed to sign. And then I got involved in deaf sports, and deaf football, and that's how I kind of learnt to sign and got involved with deaf clubs. And so really important to me. I went to the University of Sheffield for 3 years, and my social life was at the deaf club, because that was such an important part of my life for those 3 years. I was in a hearing university with hearing students, and I had hearing friends. We would communicate with each other when we were writing. But when I could go to the deaf club those evenings, Friday night at the deaf club, it was such an escape and such a relaxation.
Yeah, safe haven. What about yourself, Stuart?
And I think, with deaf clubs, we had that, but I think we've got to find the balance. We live and work in the hearing world. So the deaf club is a kind of balance. The deaf community is a balance to that. There's not one single answer for everyone, I don't think. But sport, I think, is a really important ingredient because everybody enjoys sport. I mean, I would say that people miss out or they don't know where to go. And that's something I think we need to work on. I think that's something we need to work on going forward. It used to be that you just went to the deaf club, but now that the deaf club isn't here, where do you go to find that activity? And that's something we need to work hard on.
Do you think social media, if you look at UK Deaf Sports website, we're going to put it up in the strap line in a second. It should be coming up. Okay, bear with me just for a second. I was trying to get a link there to your website. Oh, there we go. So that's your website there. So do you think the website will actually attract people and maybe you'll get a sort of wider audience?
Yes, but I
Chris?
think we've still got a lot of work to do on the website. We're working on it. We're improving it. But in terms of actively finding things, we want it to be a bit more interactive so that there's a map you can click on. Where do you live? What's available in your local area? What groups are available? And so that information comes up. There's nothing there at the moment. We're just kind of up in the process of updating that, changing the name. But I think that will be important in terms of making that visible and signposting people. It's like a flagpole, really, isn't it? Really, for athletes. I know that deaf athletes have their own Facebook group, so if we can link in with them. I mean, the park runners are a good example, that movement. So if we could do something similar with the deaf community and deaf sports, then it might serve to replace those missing deaf clubs in some way.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe we just have to think sort of differently. Okay, the deaf club as it was is gone or diminishing, but there's a new one could be happening that goes from sports. Because again, with sports, you're traveling as well, so you're getting to sort of new information and meet new people as well. I've asked you all earlier on when we were talking about sort of like solutions. It was mentioned, you were saying about the website that's hopefully going to help you access, more deaf people out there. Have you got any other sort of like strategies or ideas where you might find solutions to get these young people on board?
Well, if I knew the solutions, I'd be a very rich man, to be honest. I don't think
Me
there
too,
is
Chris.
one solution. I think there's a number of solutions, and it's very complex. So, for example, with deaf children, we talked about not going to deaf clubs, and our need to then focus on schools and then local groups, and then try and grow this into a sports community. Traditionally, we have focused on the physical sporting bodies like cricket, RFU for the rugby. Those kinds of organisations are not plugged into the deaf community, and I think it's our responsibility in UK Deaf Sports to be more proactive and promoting ourselves to those kinds of organisations, to actually relate to them and establish relationships with them, so that we can grow those communities and take advantage of those opportunities, and we can potentially add additional sports, additional clubs in local areas. As I said earlier, it's really important to be collaborative if we really want to raise the game here. So, for example, badminton. Deaf badminton, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 deaf badminton clubs, and they're mostly social, and that's really important. But if you want to compete and you want a kind of more professional badminton level, then we need to do something else.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I used both resources. I went through deaf sports competition and training, but I went in the hearing leagues, if you like, because they have access to loads of coaches with loads of skills, and I wanted to be just there to take advantage. In my time, our coaches didn't have the skills, or not that they didn't have the ability, didn't have the opportunity to attain those skills as the hearing clubs did, and it was the variety they have as well. You know, so I would really just say that, please, if you were interested in getting involved in Deaflympics, get yourself involved in a hearing club. I know you will be lonely. I know that communication will be difficult, but they will stretch you. They will stretch you physically and they will stretch you mentally. But go into both. Go back to your safe haven as well. Stuart, what was it you wanted to add?
Well, I think it's good. I mean, for me, I'm an example. I'm not an athlete, really. I'm a supporter. I'm good at supporting. And hearing sports is the same, it's the sporting life. We get involved, we pay to watch, don't we? We pay to support. And really, our Olympics should be no different. Our sports rely on people supporting us. So we need a crowd, we need a community. Bring along your hearing friends, get them involved, bring them to support us. It's only 120 days away to Tokyo, so come on, get involved.
I mean, look at us, as us here are not the athletes, we're the fans, and I know that the fans are really important. So before we talk about that, we've got a question in from one of our audience members, Erin McCluskey. And Erin's asking, first of all, she's saying, hey guys, she's just wondering if you have any concerns about deaf young people participating within Deaflympics, because she feels there isn't enough deaf young athletes and it's difficult to find the money to go to the Deaflympics. So she's concerned, interested in your views. Start with you, Chris.
Yeah, it's a good question. And next year, 2026, will be the European Youth Games, and that'll be in Germany, in Hanover.
Okay.
And that's an opportunity for us to try and mobilize and motivate young deaf people to go along. And like you say, I kind of have a taster. So we're thinking about flights and accommodation, mixing with international deaf people. And Andrea and I remember when we were back in our swimming days, when we went to Holland for competitions, and we used to compete against the Dutch and the German deaf teams in friendlies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were fantastic experiences. For me, I was a new swimmer at that time. I was about 14, 15. I landed there and I was like, wow, I learned so much from that experience. So we haven't done anything like that for a long time. So I think we have to think about creating those kinds of opportunities and how to work with young people to create those. So yeah, in answer to your questions, yes, it is difficult for young deaf people, but we're trying to get more young deaf people involved, particularly in sort of swimming. You can see the numbers of under 18s are improving, and hopefully after Tokyo that will pick up as well. So yeah.
Oh, well, fingers crossed. Um, Next year, you'd mentioned that that was a really good opportunity for people to go and actually see what it's like, maybe get a taster, and then get the buzz where they want to be participating in the Deaflympics. I think
Exactly.
it is. It's important for the parents to be supportive. What do you think, Andrea? Yeah, when I was young, um, I was involved when I was 13 in GB, and my parents were they were responsible for me, as a child of 13. Ha- And, they were absolutely willing to support me because I was passionate about swimming. I lived in Scotland at that time, and my parents would keep coming down south to England for training weekends and various other things. And if it wasn't for my parents, I would have nothing. I couldn't be involved. It was impossible at that age, and I think that's the same for everyone. And I remember when I went to the sort of hearing clubs and there was communication, there was none, at best, but my mum and dad would would be the sort of quasi interpreters for us as well. And they had the patience of saints, and I appreciate every single ounce of their effort. And at the end of the day, I made them proud. Oh, Andrea, that's wonderful. You get such supportive and loving parents, that encouraged you all the way. That's so good, so inspirational. Oh, sorry, we've got another question that's just coming in from an audience member, and this is from Kathy Curley. And Kathy's question tonight is, what if Deaflympics Live Sports was on perhaps the BBC or other channels to maybe encourage hearing people to watch it and find out about it? Would that be a possible way of supporting us?
That's a
Chris?
good question. Really, with deaf sports, it's got a much lower profile, but we are in consultation with broadcasters, and hopefully Tokyo will be available on a YouTube channel, some footage from
Great.
Tokyo. So, highlights, clips, interviews, that sort of thing. So we'll see. We know viewing is different from our days, with when we grew up on TV. Now there's YouTube, there's the internet, there's all that kind of thing. So we're trying to meet the needs of our audience. But hopefully something will be emerging around that.
Stuart, you're keen.
Yeah, I think we need to relate to that and to the parents. One of the reasons that I wrote the book was I read a newspaper talking about, the London Olympics, and it was talking about a mother and a deaf son watching, and the deaf son kind of being amazed and saying, "I want to do that. I want to do that." And the mother saying, "Well, I don't know where to go to enable my son to do that." And that was really interesting for me, and that kind of inspired me to write the book, to try and get that information out there
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, and I think publicity of Deaflympics should help, because straight away people begin talking about it. If their children are talking about it, then the parents are kind of like going to be intrigued about what their kids are talking about, and that generates interest, hopefully.
Chris.
Just another point about parents, really. I think it's really important to give parents information about how to fundraise and find opportunities for their children. And that might be local deaf children's groups, deaf children's societies, parents and family groups, deaf organisations. So where can families get involved? Where can they plug themselves in? You know, if that information is available through audiology, through education, and so on.
Yeah, use all the networks, I suppose.
I think we have to try as many ways as we can.
I think tonight, I mean, just hearing about all these different suggestions and ideas, I mean, there's loads that can be tackled. Would you believe we have 5 minutes left? I can't believe it myself. So I have to really ask you this question. It's regarding sort of commitment to sport. What's your vision for the future for sport? Do you want more commitment? Do you want to see things differently? Andrea? Well, for me, I always hope that we'll have that consistency, that continuity. I don't want it to end. I'm sure we will look for and find the best adaptations that we need. We'll never give up. We've been going too long. We're just going to keep on going. Chris?
For me, my main hope is that we would get government recognition of Deaflympics, and that would bring support and support for our deaf athletes. And UKGB, as I mentioned, is falling behind compared to other Deaflympics communities, in other countries. So I think it's a really important thing to sort out. It's not just about funding. It's about, GB, has established lots of different sports, and they've improved their coaching, like Andrea was saying before, access to good coaching, access to good opportunities. And I think all of that stems from recognition of Deaflympics, and that's what I'm looking for.
You've got some challenge as a challenge. Stuart, have you got anything to add to what Chris has said?
I think it filters down, doesn't it? If you do get that recognition from the top, then it filters down to the grassroots. I mean, if two athletes turn up at a club, right? And one's a deaf athlete and the other one is a Paralympian. It's easy for a club to know what to do with the Paralympian. They don't know how to support the deaf athlete. So that's what I mean about this filter down. If we get government support and government recognition, I think that would help a lot, because it would filter down to the local level at clubs level, and parents, clubs, other athletes would realise what to do with deaf sports people.
Chris, you've got something you want to say.
And also, I think it's key, looking back over, the recent years and the growth of women's sports and the recognition of women's sports, and that's happened because they've been funded and they've gone from strength to strength, and now they get sponsorship and everybody's interested in that. And I think we need the same for deaf sports. Awareness leads to funding, leads to growth, leads to more involvement. And that's how I think it needs to go.
Wow, Chris. Well, I can only ask each one of you as my final question, as we're nearly time's up. If you've got anything you'd like to share with our audience, any tips or anything about the forthcoming Tokyo Olympics, Andrea? Okay, for me, if there's someone at home who would be interested in being an athlete in any of the Olympics, Deaf Olympics, then you have to train hard. If you really want to be on that podium, you have to train hard. There is no easy way to get it. And you can do it. I would highly recommend being involved in the deaf sports, but also in a local hearing club. But you have to train, and that commitment has to be there. But I would always say make sure you're enjoying it all the way. Yeah, as you said, Andrea, you have to be committed, but enjoy it. Chris, what about yourself?
A lot of the most successful athletes will tell you that they've gone through hell to get to the top. Blood, sweat and tears, as they say. So you do have to put up with a bit on the way. You can't just assume that, oh, I'm going to be good at sports, I'm going to get a medal. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Competition is hard. It's really challenging, and you have to be really dedicated to your training. So you need to be pretty thick-skinned, you have to be determined, and you have to be resilient.
Stuart, can you top any of that?
Well, just, Chris is talking about the athlete. I would want to talk about the community around the athlete. Every athlete needs a community to support them.
Yeah, I agree.
And the community is part of Team GB. We all contribute something that helps that athlete succeed. So you don't sit back and think, sport has nothing to do with me. It is. It's part of you. It's part of your pride. It represents you. You're being represented at GB level by your athlete. So please support them continuously on their journey.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely right. It's a symbiotic relationship. Our athletes and our supporters, we work together, and it reinforces the culture and the community spirit, which is the deaf community. As we're just approaching the final minutes, Chris, you've got anything final you want to say?
I hope the deaf community will continue to support its athletes to Tokyo and beyond, and I'd like to thank them for doing so. I think it's a wonderful community, and they've been very supportive.
And if anybody there is at home is interested in Deaflympics, please contact us at UK Deaf Sports and we'll help you and we'll support you. Well, finally, I just want to say on behalf of our viewers at home, thank you for being here tonight. And if you want any more information, contact UK Deaf Sports website. We showed you earlier on. And just want to say, hopefully we'll get the sponsorship to make sure that everything's all smooth for everyone in Japan. And finally, to all the athletes, good luck. And I hope to see you on the podium with your shiny medals. Thank you to each and every one of you. Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Thank
viewers at
you.
home. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.